Good morning, everyone. Virgo here. It is June 19th, 2019, and today for Sovereign Citizen History, we're going to be going over the Montana Freeman. A lot of you may remember this from over 20 years ago now. This was a standoff that was beyond belief between the Montana Freeman and the FBI, and I'm going to be going over all of the members and showing you some pictures. And I'm also going to be talking to you about their sentences and what each one of them gave to the actual movement itself. So, for example, we have the redemption theory scammers. One of them even was coined the snake oil salesman. We have the people that were militia. We have this is a group of very interesting individuals within the sovereign citizen movement. Um, Keep in mind, we're still back in the 90s with a lot of these that I'm going to be going over first in sovereign citizen history. So, of course, we have to pay special attention to the Montana Freemen because they definitely are at the top of the list with regards to spearheading this movement in the 90s. So, the Montana Freemen were an anti-government Christian patriot movement group that was based outside of a town called Jordan, Montana. And the members of the group, they referred to their land as the quote unquote Justice Township, Justus Township. They had declared themselves no longer under the authority of any outside government whatsoever, and they became the center of public attention in 1996 when they engaged in a prolonged armed standoff with agents of the FBI. For several years prior, the Montana Freemen had issued quote unquote common law paperwork that harassed local judges, sheriffs, and county attorneys, what we now call today paper terrorism. They would bury them in a forest of paperwork. They would send in information pertaining to the Magna Carta, phony court judgments, computer-generated financial instruments like accepted for value, and all kinds of different false and phony financial instruments. They all claimed that the government had absolutely no jurisdiction over them or their property. They viewed support of the corporate credit system as an unconstitutional act for which would deprive the people of their property eventually. The Freemen created their own peculiar blend of right-wing ideology by blending a broad-based anti-federal activism, posse-derived common law philosophy, and the theology of Christian identity all together in an anti-Semitic and racist belief system that has really animated segments of the radical right for decades now. They're still doing it too. Definitely you can see it across social media today that it really amps up the radical right wing by mixing these things together. Hence, watching someone like April LeJeune or Alex Jones. In doing so, they found a consistency and a desire for the scam that was willing to openly defy the authorities and defraud the unsuspecting at the same exact time. Their approach was also similar to that of Posse Comitatus, yet resentment of gun control, land and environmental regulation, and chronic rural dislocation was greater in the early 1990s than during the Posse's heyday, which was a decade earlier, of course. So by 1994 to 95, the Freeman's Montana garrisons became the most important way stations in the network that stretched from the Northwest to the Midwest to the South, Oklahoma, and then Texas. And during this period, common law courts and militias were popping up from North Carolina to California, spreading the group's white supremacist views and pseudo-legal mumbo jumbo through rural societies and related groups around the nation. At the same time, the Freemen established themselves in the central avenues of Montana community life. They employed a strategy that might be called mass resistance. So, unlike members of terrorist cells who operate, clandestinely, the Freemen propagandized publicly at well-attended community meetings and in court appearances. Until their arrests in the summer of 1996, the Montana Freemen managed to spread their doctrines from one end of the nation to the other. They were the hub of the wheel whose spokes extended to Florida, Texas, California, New York, and then everywhere else. Giving class upon class at their ranches in Roundup and Jordan, Montana, the Freeman leaders propagated their peculiar combination of common law ideology and break-the-bank schemes.
Had a court order to open that account with Norwest Bank. I put his $77 million default in there and started drawing on it. And then I appointed Rod and Dan as Special United States Magistrate to handle the account. And so that we wouldn't be overdrawn, I had them both put some of their funds in there. So they put about $600 million apiece in there. And we have quite a few $100 million and a few billion to put in that account in case we ever get overdrawn. That's why I asked them how much is left. And they didn't say, so evidently they're not too worried about the audit. We put a mandamus out on them that they will audit that account since they didn't do it and they only have 30 days to get the job done. Now we get to write checks, drafts, warrants, whatever you call it, until we deplete the account. And we have numerous new customers every day. Many, many customers. Every time that, let's say I write you a draft, a warrant, and you take it down and do what we tell you to do, and a smart-ass postal service employee says this is no good, then I have a new customer and you have a new customer. And I'm getting them $5 billion apiece for credit slander at this time. Okay, let's go through the packet a bit. On the flip your page, it's Virgo, number 1. This is where he writes a little letter saying what happened. Then you'll see our check on Virgo number 2, $3,200. And with his little cover letter telling the people what to do. And then some more correspondence back and forth. I won't get into that too much.
An estimated 800 followers flocked to the Freeman's classes, and the group became a main stage event, not just another cranky sideshow. Before the siege at Justice Township, the Freemen had come dangerously close to their goal of establishing themselves as a dual power, with authority rivaling that of local and federal governments. At one point, a local mayor actually became part of the Freemen. A common law propagandist named Ron I believe I'm pronouncing this right, Griesacker, said he attended a school of learning with Montana Freeman leader Leroy Schweitzer before setting up common law courts in Kansas. So people around the country who studied with Schweitzer, were inspired to set up their own common law courts. Does this sound familiar? Perhaps the most important Freeman collaborator was the United Sovereigns of America, who called themselves the USA. An Oklahoma group, once led by anti-Semite Gerald Henson, who is now serving an 8-year prison term. In 1995, USA joined with Coloradan Eugene Schroeder to convene a national common law convention in Wichita, Kansas, and its tracts still are widely circulated in the movement. Common law courts are courts organized at the local level outside the recognized judicial system that purportedly apply principles of common law in order to resolve disputes and adjudicate criminal matters. Like similar courts developed by posse comitatus, common law courts meet in private homes or community gathering places such as bingo halls, restaurants, bowling alleys, etc. Some courts act as instruments of harassment. Others appear to be sincere attempts by members to implement their beliefs by freeing themselves from what they consider to be state tyranny and holding public officials accountable to the people. There are others that are extremely dangerous, and you hear about these courts still in Anna von Reitz's writings and teachings. One reporter described the common law courts as the judicial arm of the Christian patriot movement. While this assertion is almost certainly false, the patriot movement is too disorganized to have a clearly defined separation of powers or division of responsibilities. There is a strong connection between elements of the patriot movement, including their militias, and many common law courts. The first Wisconsin common law court appeared in 1995, and former members of the Posse Comitatus and Family Farm Preservation have promoted the formation of other Wisconsin common law courts. Clan Watch, you heard it, Clan Watch has identified common law courts in 12 Wisconsin counties, and state law enforcement officials view the movement with extreme concern. Still, Wisconsin common law courts are not particularly active. Common law courts in other states are more active, particularly when it comes to intimidating public officials. When a Missouri judge refused to dismiss a speeding ticket given to a 17-year-old adherent, our one Supreme Court ordered him to appear before a common law court. When the judge did not appear, the common law court rendered a default verdict against him and ordered him to pay $10.8 million in a lien that they placed on his home. The other reason that common law courts are in practice is to intimidate those that speak out and expose them. As you guys know, not very long ago, about a year ago, the FBI was contacted with regards to a group that put out a warrant for my arrest for supposed attempted murder for reading a Southern Poverty Law Center article on someone by the name of John Folks that I actually had no idea who they were. But by the simple act of me reading the Southern Poverty Law Center article, they claimed that because I said the words sovereign citizen from the article, that they could put a warrant out for my arrest. Needless to say, the FBI didn't find it funny. And later on, April LeJeune decided to pick it up and start using it to try to smear my name. It didn't work out too well for her. Most people are fully aware that common law courts are not recognized within the United States. Judges have faced similar harassment from an Ohio version of one Supreme Court, which meets in a Columbus bingo hall. We have it on good authority that Anna von Reitz's meets at the local Denny's. Common law courts in other states have attempted to hold public officials accountable to their standards. The Kansas Territorial Agricultural Society, a common law court linked with the Posse Comitatus, found U.S. District Judge J. Thomas Martin guilty and indicted at a 1997 Abilene meeting, and it ordered him to appear before the Constitutional Court for an impeachment trial. The court met again in an old Supreme Court chambers in Topeka several weeks later, and a 10-man jury impeached Martin on charges of holding a rogue court, kidnapping and blackmail, taking property, and extortion. Legislators blocked the group's subsequent attempt to return to the chambers to impeach other judges, try the Kansas Attorney General for holding office illegally, and try the Shawnee county sheriff for refusing to arrest Bill Graves, whom the court claimed was impersonating the governor of Kansas. Talk about the pot calling the kettle black. Similar activities have occurred in Indiana, Nebraska, and Montana. Freeman leader Leroy M. Schweitzer had operated a Montana crop dusting business until running afoul of the IRS in the mid-1980s. Schweitzer, geez, I'm having trouble with that name today, filed a civil action against the state of Montana in March of 1990 and convinced a judge to open a $100 account at Northwest Bank to receive any possible judgments in his favor. Although the account was closed in 1994, he used paperwork from the account throughout the scam. In the critical next step, Schweitzer and the Freeman convened so-called common law courts and issued criminal charges against individuals and government agencies. Garfield County Attorney Nick Murnion, for instance, was charged with treason and threatened with death. The Freemen were also known to produce their very own realistic counterfeit checks and money orders, sometimes ordering items and deliberately overpaying so that they could demand refunds. Sound familiar? There's a scam very similar to that going on right now. The president of one bank reported that over an 18-month period, his bank received 2 to 5 complaints a week about Freeman checks. In 95, members wrote a fraudulent check to try to purchase $1.4 million worth of firearms, ammunition, and bulletproof vests. So on March 2nd of 1995, William Stanton became the first Montana resident ever convicted of terrorism. District Judge Kenneth Wilson sentenced the Garfield County rancher to 10 years in jail and which was, of course, the maximum penalty at that time, for using violence for political ends. The following day, 4 armed men who styled themselves the Garfield County Freemen were arrested when they entered the Musselshell County Courthouse and tried to file papers protesting the seizure of Rodney Skerdale's house by the Internal Revenue Service. In late 94, foreclosure proceedings were initiated against the farm that contained Justice Township. The Freemen refused to be evicted from the land. They had also conducted their own mock trials of numerous public officials and issued their own writ of execution against a federal judge. The FBI investigated the group and initiated a sting operation aimed at one of the Freemen's financial programs, which led to the arrest of 2 members of the group in March of 96. The FBI had warrants for 8 other persons suspected to be in the farm, but before they were able to arrest them, an armed confrontation developed, and the FBI withdrew to safe distance in order to avoid serious violence. After 81 days of negotiations, the Freemen surrendered to authorities on June 14, 1996. Leroy Schweitzer was convicted of conspiracy, bank fraud, mail fraud, wire fraud, false claims to the IRS, interstate transportation of stolen property, threats against public officials, armed robbery of a television news crew, and firearm violation. He received a 22-year sentence for 25 convictions in a South Carolina federal prison. In 2006, he was moved to the Administrative Maximum ADX facility at the Florence Federal Correctional Complex at Florence, Colorado, after Irvin, Elbert Hurlbert, and Donald Little, who identified themselves as Montana Marshals, attempted to free Schweitzer from the prison. He died in federal prison on September 20th of 2011. Supposedly of natural causes, although I do not have the actual proof in front of me to show you that. He was aged, his age was 73 years old at the time. Emmett Clark pled guilty, received time served plus 3 years under supervision. Richard Clark received 12 years. James Hentz received 5 years and 7 months. Levon T. Hansen pled guilty with a plea bargain and received 1 year and 1 day. Dana Dudley Landers pled guilty and received 1 year, 9 months with credit for 2 years and 3 months already served. Russell Dean Landers received 11 years and 3 months. Daniel E. Peterson received 15 years. Dale M. Jacoby, I do not have the information on. Scott Roeder, convicted for the 2009 murder of George Tiller, was reportedly involved with the Freeman in addition. Even in jail, the Freeman spouted on. Perplexed officials reported that in the months after their arrests, the Freeman's jailmates unleashed a flood of their own bizarre Freeman-esque legal documents. Schweitzer and his Freeman followed directly behind another organized swindle run by an organization calling itself We the People. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stop there because I think that gives you a good amount of information to go on. I'm going to go ahead and link several articles and pieces of information, one by the Smithsonian, that you guys can actually take a look at. This is an important group to do research on if you are indeed studying all of the history of the sovereign citizen movement, because it is at least one, if not more, of the members of the Montana Freeman that every single sovereign citizen today that is scamming people or part of a militia or part of a group of people that are teaching others how to open their own supposed common law courts across the nation and even other countries are pulling from. They're pulling from the Montana Freeman and Posse Comitatus. All right, you guys, I hope that this helped you to understand better about the Montana Freeman if you didn't already know, and it was a good refresher for you if you did. There may have even been some information in there that you guys did not hear across the news channels, and I hope you enjoyed the pictures. If you would like additional information with regards to the Montana Freeman and their seminars that they gave, you're welcome to email me at virgotriad@protonmail.com, and I will certainly pass on some links to you where you can watch some of the seminars that they gave in order to scam people, basically, out of money and teach them how to use false liens and this sort of thing in order to go against people that oppose them. See, I can't think of anything else on these guys. If you have questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section for me or email me privately if you'd like, virgotriad@protonmail.com. And I hope everybody has a great day. Bye-bye.